What are we calling this? Is this a podcast?
Red. It's Clash. Yeah.
Welcome to a special edition of Reddit Talks Clash. If you were really excited to hear your favorite Reddit moderators going through another episode of their amazing podcast, you are going to be sorely disappointed because
Too
this
bad.
morning you will not be. Yes, you will not be hearing from Congressman Coolrick or Liam or Spencer or Sam. Today, we have a special mashup that we are doing among the podcast community. So Congressman Coolrick came up with an idea of sort of shuffling some of the podcasts around. So this week, if you want to hear the Reddit Talks Clash team, you're going to have to check out Clash Tours, which is a podcast traditionally hosted by C-Note. And if you want to hear C-Note's podcast, Clash Tours, you want to hear C-Note, you're going to have to check out the Pineapples and Thorns podcast, which is traditionally hosted by Kat. And if you want to hear Kat, you're going to have to check out my podcast, Inside Clash with Trample Damage. Today, I drew the excitement of being able to host Reddit Talks Clash, and because I don't have anybody else that normally does my podcast with me, I reached out to a couple of other people to have them come on to the show here. So we are essentially going to be presenting to you what I feel like is the past, present, and future of podcasting in the form of, we have a temporarily retired podcaster in Big B who was hosting the Clashwolves podcast for quite a while before taking a break. And we have the present podcast of Trample Damage with my podcast Inside Clash, and somebody I like to think of as a potential future for podcasting, Duck, one of my clan mates and co-leaders in our clan, the Good Guys. He is an avid podcast enthusiast and is somebody that has expressed some very great interest in eventually podcasting as well. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Big B so he can introduce himself, and after we talk to get an introduction from Big B and from Duck and a brief overview for myself, we are going to wind up talking about the clash of drama that is currently existing with esports and Eric and Adam and Joe and Lexos and Galadon and lots of cool stuff happening within the creator community. Talk a little bit about the direction we think that the developers need to go with the game, the hero event that is going on right now, along with our thoughts for the future of whatever a new fifth hero might be, before we talk about some direction on how Supercell has gone with gems recently. And then in old school RTC style, we're going to talk about some of the cool stuff that has been happening on the Reddit Talks Clash, on the Reddit Clash of Clans subreddit. And then we'll have some shout outs. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Big B if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and what you were doing with your podcast.
All right, thanks, Trample. Yeah, I do feel like I got to explain who I am because I think we had like 27 followers to the podcast called The Clashwolves. It ran for about a year earlier this year. So many of you listening out there might be like, why is this guy? Why does he get on? I guess because I like to talk. But as far as Clash goes, here's my credentials. I've been playing since I think 2014. I've got an account that's got a 2014 Christmas tree on it. So that's where I earmark my start of Clash. I currently have something like 12 accounts. That's I'd say a hobby. It's more of an obsession for me. I've got them at all of the top town hall levels. I have 2 16s, a 15, a 14, 13, a couple 12s, a couple 11s, a 10, 3 and a 2, and I have a really super rushed one, which I think is now up to, it's almost done with 12, but it's just lab and heroes, no defenses whatsoever. That's been a labor of love for me. So I've been playing for a while. Like you said, I hosted a podcast that a few people out there listen to, and I have a lot of hot opinions. So for those out there listening today, good luck as we talk about the Clash drama and everything else. Gonna throw out a lot of stuff at you today. You're not gonna agree with all of it. Those of the 12 of you who did listen to the old podcast, I don't know how famous, but I started a lot of the pot around like clan leadership and stuff. I was a clan leader for, I don't know, a year or two at one point in time. I hated it. I absolutely hated it. So there's a lot of things I don't like about being a clan leader. Most of the guys who don't agree with what I say end up being guys who are leaders, co-leaders in their clans. So that's just, listen, we're going to agree to disagree on a lot of things today. So good luck with that, but I'm happy to be here and happy to mix it up with you guys. So Duck, I'm going to be depending on you to kind of keep me honest on some stuff or keep me in line. So don't let me get too far off the rails. All right, bud?
Well, listen, man, I'm trying to save all my good stuff for like my podcast eventually, but I think I can agree with you on at least one thing that, we are glad that you're back today and hopefully it's not the last time we see you. Um, as for me, I started playing in 2013 with some friends and family. I played through about Town Hall 11 and then took a break when it got hard and all of my casual friends got kicked out of the clan that we were in. Um, Took a break until 2022, came back, was really far behind. So I basically scoured Reddit for any and all resources. I came across T's Guide. I came across, there was like a list of podcasts that Rick had compiled. So shout out to him for that. Got into some of the podcasts and I really just enjoy the community that has been built kind of around the podcast and the different creators. There's a lot of information in there, a lot of cool, unique people. So that's kind of like what got me into this. And yeah, I play on one account, sometimes the second one, but that's really about it.
And I am Trample Damage. If you don't know who I am, that's okay. I won't be offended. I do have a super creator status within the Clash of Clans world. So Supercell has been very kind in, giving me a creator code and access to their Slack. I post on TikTok, on YouTube. I do have a podcast called Inside Clash, and I really love the Clash of Clans subreddit. For me, when Global went away, that my YouTube channel was first starting. I had like, 12 subscribers. And then Global went away and I was like, where am I going to farm for subscribers? So I found Reddit, which to me has always been really just Clash of Clans and Magic the Gathering stuff. And I started interacting with the community because unlike many people who interact with the Clash of Clans subreddit, I read the rules right away and I saw like no self-promotion and spamming. It was like, 90% of your commentary should be, stuff that contributes to the community. And I got to be very friendly with a couple of people that were on there, and I was posting a lot and I was sharing a lot. And I eventually became friends with Congressman Coolrick, and he eventually ended up joining my clan, the Good Guys, where he and Duck are also leaders. And it's been a lot of fun interacting with the Reddit community. I still post on Reddit. I try to post challenge guides on there all the time in a way that just contributes to the community because I like being a part of it. And that is what sort of led us to where we are today. Because if I hadn't been a part of the Reddit community, I would have never met Congressman Coolrick, and I never probably would have ended up getting into podcasting in the first place, which I was a co host on a podcast for a short period of time, and that fell apart. And then I eventually started my own, and now we're on our shuffle. So I'm very excited about this, and I do want to thank Congressman Coolrick for setting this whole thing up. And also, again, really quick, big shout out to C Note and also to Kat, the hosts of the Clash Tours and the Pineapples and Thorns podcast, for participating in this little, cycle that we've got here of sharing podcasts. I'm going to do my best to attempt to share the stage today because I normally just ramble on by myself for quite a long period of time. So I'm hoping I learn how to play nice in the sandbox. Like there's no other way to start than this absolute massive clash of drama that we've had lately, starting with, Eric's ousting from the creator program. And I know there has been a ton of commentary on this on Twitter, on Reddit, all over various social media platforms, in addition to the commentary in the YouTube sections. One thing I wanted to clear up just really, really quickly that I got a little bit of flack for was when Eric got his email from Supercell saying, "Hey, we're banning you from the creator program," and then he subsequently posted kind of like a "Hey, we're back" when he got another email saying you're unbanned. I don't think he realized exactly what was happening there, and I put a post on Reddit just with a screenshot of those two emails side by side. His first email said, "Hey, you're being demoted from tier 3 to tier 2, and eventually you'll be able to reconnect." The new email basically said your temporary ban is gone and you'll need to reconnect your Discord, which is how the tier 2 creators are able to interact because they don't have Slack to be able to talk directly with the Clash team. So I think he just maybe misunderstood that. And I saw a lot of posts on Reddit of people saying things like, "He's back, all right, let's go. How come creator code Eric doesn't work anymore?" So we are still in that 6-month period of banning where he will not have a creator code, he will not have access to Slack, he will not have access to the development development box, and of course the the plot does wind up thickening from there. So a couple of things that we're going to talk about on this one, the state of the game and his accusations and pay to win, and will he get back in the game, and what we look like on the esports side. Before we wind up jumping directly into the esports side, I want to kick it over to Big B for a minute on one of the big accusations we've been hearing from a lot of people is this like suddenly calling Clash a pay to win game. Do you feel like that's a fair assessment?
I mean, yes, but I mean, in that, not that it's suddenly become a pay to win game. It's always been a pay to win game, and anyone who says it's not is, I mean, either you've got the patience of a saint, or you just haven't been really that concerned with playing at a max level in your entire Clash career. But there has always been a pay element, and people forget how the early game, before even magic items, like it was all gems to hurry stuff up, and everything took forever, and it was really goading you into paying some money, buying some gems, and then skipping stuff. So there's always been an element that's tried to lean in, sometimes a little bit harder, sometimes a little bit less, into paying money into the game, just from a business standpoint. So is it pay to win? I mean, every mobile game to some extent is pay to win. I guess the bigger question is it more overtly, or is it not? And the reality is, it's a game, and you can pick and choose how much you want to spend on it or not spend on it. The reality is, when you spin a war, right, you're matching war weights. So generally speaking, with some nuance, there's a somewhat even matchup. Even you got a heavier at the top, you're lighter at the bottom. Some of that stuff happens with matchmaking because they don't want you waiting forever to make a match. But is it, you have to pay to win? No, you don't. I mean, you get to play at the level wherever you're at. I hear this term all the time. It's pay to progress. I mean, yeah, to some extent. I've seen guys with really good skill, play much higher than their town hall level and attack up town hall levels. I've even done it myself a few times, not to brag, humble brag, right? But, it happens in the game, right? Quite frankly, in just my opinion, hot sports opinion coming in here, if you're the one with the banner saying, oh no, it's all pay to win, you're probably one who your teammates are side-eyeing during wars going, why the heck is he dropping all of this stuff in the corner? Why doesn't he watch a video and learn a better plan attack? If you're so into it's pay to win, it's probably because you're not very good at the game. That doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean the game's not for you. Okay, not everyone has to be great. People can enjoy not being as good. But listen, it is what it is. And the beauty of the game, the reason it's lasted for 12 years, because it makes so much money, and part of that has to be a paying aspect of the game. But you don't have to pay in order to win. You just have to pay to progress faster, right? Or have a lot of patience. That's
So, Duck, what do you think? Do you consider Clash to be a pay to win game?
I,
And do you think
I
it's
mean,
any different now than it used to be?
I think it's a lot less pay to win than it was before, because to Big B's point, like before, if you started the game in 2012, 2013, 2014, and there was somewhere you wanted to go, something you wanted to upgrade, like you had to just spend gems to do it, and not like at a discounted, with builder potions or books or anything special. It was just straight gems. So I think you talked about it on your podcast before, like hero upgrades. Those were 1,000 gems a pop, I think it was, and that was just to be able to be in war. So to me, like that's pay to win, or more so pay to win. I mean, obviously you could wait, but nowadays it feels more like pay to play. And what I mean by that is you can play the game free to play if you want to, but you are going to hit periods of time where you're not doing anything, where you're kind of waiting around, and the game is geared to get you to want to play even during those times where you can't. And in order to do that, you have to spend money. And they've given us a lot of different avenues in the game to spend money, which don't necessarily have anything to do with how well you play the game, whether it's skins or sceneries, that kind of stuff, statues, decorations. Now, like that's a big one everyone's upset about. They're charging $5 for a pretty cool statue. I think as a business, they've been really smart about finding ways to get anyone and everyone's money that wants to spend it. And I think that's great, because the game has been able to continue on for this long. But if you're, a Town Hall 15, 16 right now, you can conceivably not spend and you could be just as competitive as any of us. You just might be a little bit slower on your upgrade times, which I don't really think is a problem.
So it's interesting hearing you guys have. I feel like I have a slightly different take on notion of pay to win. I always thought of it as if I'm going to be playing a game with you guys, whether it's a board game, it's a video game, it's a card game, and you have access to stuff I don't have access to because you paid, then it feels like that's my definition. My mental definition has always been pay to win is I get a benefit or a bonus in game as a result of money that I've spent on the game, which in my mind over the years with Clash hasn't been an issue. Yeah, I'm a Town Hall 10 and you're a Town Hall 12 and you're a Town Hall 12, even though you started later than I did and don't play as often because you spend money to help you progress. So I never really had a problem with that notion of pay to progress. To me, I feel like the notion of pay to win has actually cropped up for the first time for me with the advent of the hero equipment because it is something that if you happen to miss during a certain time frame, and even though I still have a level 2 giant gauntlet on most of my accounts, I've been rocking the vamp stash and the I know, Big P.
What are you
I've been
doing?
I've been rocking I was the Vamp Stash and the Barbarian Puppet for a long time before the Spiky Ball came out and I replaced the Barbarian Puppet. But in a way now I think about, and this will sort of segue into the dialogue related to the esports scene and the bans and whatnot. In the past, to me, it was really just a matter of, like you said, patience, right? Somebody, you take your time, you get to play, and eventually you'll wind up getting to where you want to get to. But if you missed the Giant Gauntlet event and you'd like to have access to what is arguably the most popular piece of equipment for players in the game, you will now wind up having to come out of pocket. Now, somebody can certainly argue, well, but you can save gems and it's only, I'm using air quotes here, only 1,500 gems to be able to get it. But it is something that does require you to get an in-game currency that you are not able to just get through the normal course of playing. Like you have to save for a decent amount of time to be able to get those. So I wind up thinking about that as a little bit more, I do think about the game as a little bit more pay to win than in the past. Although, as somebody who was meeting with a ton of success using non-epic equipment for all my heroes, I use dual tomes on the Warden. Now I do use a Spiky Ball for the King, but I was using the Barbarian Puppet very happily with a lot of success because Town Hall 16 is more approachable than it used to be. But we are looking at a situation now where we have a scene of people that are wanting to play the game at a competitive level, that want to get in, and they do have a long road ahead of them that it will wind up requiring them to spend money on the game. Big B, what are you thinking?
Well, and listen, I get because of the way that the equipment was released, I understand how it feels more overtly pay to win because of how much it was dropped and it's a brand new currency and everyone starts at zero, right? Um, but at the end of the day, there is still an in-game process to earn the currency in order to get that stuff. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer, but again, how quickly we forget how long the upgrade times used to be just for hero levels and how hard farming Dark Elixir used to be at certain times. And I think when you look at the grand scheme of things, what you are working in the game to accumulate in order to upgrade your stuff, on top of the upgrade time that it takes, right? You were spending time farming to upgrade heroes before. Then you had to wait for the upgrade time, which again, they've done a great job of reducing those, especially for the lower town hall levels over the years. But when you look back at wherever the max play was, it's always been days, weeks, almost to get just one level up. And you think of the time that takes to farm from doing your daily hits, from being in wars, how much it takes in order to actually progress some of those same features or some of the newer features on your heroes. And it's always been about leveraging your time versus how much you're willing to spend to skip that. And I think if whether it was in the form of upgrade costs with just hero levels that came with automatic abilities or separating that out and doing it with gems, to me it's the same concept. Feels a little bit different because we started so many of the equipment out from ground zero instead of at your normal town hall level, which I do think they could have done to help out some of that feeling. But at the same time, the progression level and kind of the concept behind it, it's really the same. It feels different because it's new and because there was so much of it, especially for longtime players like the three of us who have max town hall levels, who have this equipment now that we're used to just getting everything maxed out all the time. And there's all of this starting from ground zero. It feels like, oh man, the only way to catch up here is to pay. But how quickly you forget that feeling on, okay, the next update's coming. I've got to start collecting some books or some runes or stuff to be able to get some of these upgrades done on day one. Maybe I can't do all the heroes, but I want to get the queen done as quickly as possible because she's the most important hero I got. That same feeling transferred on both of them. And I think it just feels different because we started from ground zero on a lot of the equipment. But I think it's the same concept. Duck, I think
That's a fair.
you had
Yeah, it's a
something
fair.
too.
That's a very fair point. Duck, what do you got?
Yeah, so like I think you kind of mentioned something there that struck with me. So I actually haven't had a max account for very long. So I kind of had a different mindset or experience kind of going through equipment, Town Hall 15, stuff like that. To be honest, I was actually never a max account until recently with Town Hall 16. Um, but as a player that came back 2022 as a Town Hall 11 and Town Hall 15 was getting ready to come out, like I was playing from behind. So I came back and naturally just looked at everything in front of me and was like, well, that's a lot. And I mean, to be honest, it was way more than the amount of equipment they've dropped in terms of like content, what I had to do to get to the end kind of thing. So my mindset was to, buy the gold pass, buy books, stuff like that, try to catch up. But what I realized is once I got closer and closer to max, that kind of calculus changed because now it's like, well, now I'm buying a book to skip ahead and not have anything to do for another 6 months. And this is back when they were doing town halls every 18 months. So when the equipment came out, I wasn't as shocked by that because to me in my head, I'm looking down, I'm like, okay, like that's roughly about a year of farming out resources. And that to me doesn't seem too bad. And it, I think gives those max players that are used to just gemming and having nothing to do except sit on their hands something to look forward to, like a carrot, if you will. And this is something that I feel like is really only going to be something we talk about for a little bit longer because eventually we're going to get to the point where as players are encountering these equipments, they're getting a couple at a time where they're keeping up with it. It felt different for us because we got it all at once. But I personally love that we got it all at once because I didn't have to get stuck with just, a cool new frozen arrow that doesn't really suit my attacks. Like I had all of the equipment to look at and go, okay, these are the ones I want to go with because they excite me. Whereas other people went completely opposite ways. And we wouldn't have had that if they trickled out just a few at a time. So I think in a lot of ways, like this wasn't as bad. And I don't think it had to have been pay to win because again, it's stuff that we're going to accrue resources for. And once you're max, you're just going to max those resources out and then you have full storages, and it's kind of a waste. So
That's fair.
I don't know. I like it.
So if I think about this, when we look at new strategies that come out, whether it's because of a new troop or an alignment on the meta because a troop maybe gets a buff or a nerf, or they maybe introduce a new super troop, or they buff some defenses, or they introduce hard mode, a big piece of all of this is geared around especially the esports scene, right? As an esports player, I want to be able to have a lot of versatility. If my team is practicing a new cool attack that uses the spiky ball and I don't have the spiky ball maxed, I'm in a position where, hey, this is, something that is very difficult for me to execute because I don't have maybe a key piece of equipment. The same thing for me. All my favorite armies right now use a giant arrow. So if I was playing on a team and suddenly came up with this great new strategy of a giant arrow and I'm sharing it with my team, and they don't have the giant arrow maxed. Now, as a common piece of equipment, they certainly have access to it, but what if it was a piece of epic equipment and then their only recourse to be able to get access to it is to purchase? They wouldn't be able to just grind something out. They wouldn't just be able to use a magic item that they got from clan games. They would wind up having to wind up using gems to pick it up. And I think loading out an account is actually something that has been at the center of this esports situation that we're looking at, that Eric continues to go on about and talk about. And we've been seeing a lot of stuff where Clash just yesterday dropped this note where they said, hey, look, we went through terms of service, which is all about making sure people are playing on their own accounts. And part of that I think is because they want to make sure when they're building out the rules for these Clash events that one really skilled player didn't have 5 accounts that they were playing. So everybody's supposed to be their own individual person. It's supposed to be a team. It's Clash of Clans. It's a community thing. But so they've got rules in there for, you're not piloting somebody else's account. We're not sharing accounts. And a lot of this I know has to do with account security. But this idea of, as a new player, let's say I'm good at the game and I could be the next best thing, but I have a 2.5 or 3 year runway to be able to get up to play at an esports level. And so, in order to shortcut that, maybe I wind up going out to buy an account. Now, I'm not advocating that. I thoroughly discourage it because it is against terms of service. I have homegrown all of my accounts, with the only exception that a couple of my accounts are accounts that used to belong to my wife or my kids, and they played on those accounts as well. But I've never purchased an account. I've always just played and developed my own accounts, but I'm also enjoying the ride and I'm enjoying the travel that is upgrading from one town hall to the next, upgrading my new troops. And if I wanted to get into the esports scene, maybe I'm using hero potions and rushing my town hall to 16, and I could be competing as an attacker as a max town hall 16, but I don't have a base that would actually let me compete with anybody in worlds. And so then I wind up maybe doing some stuff that is considered shady by Supercell in the form of acquiring a new account. And because they're, for those of you who haven't seen it, they basically said, all right, well, we banned a couple of these teams and we kicked a few people out of the game and we started looking for other plans that we could put in here instead. And I think what we figured out is that everybody buys accounts and shares accounts and pilots other people's accounts, and everybody is, according to the terms of service, everybody is dirty. So now what we're going to do is say, never mind, everybody can get back into worlds. And I see a lot of people super frustrated about this. And Big B, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this one, so I'm curious about your take on this.
Yeah, I was collecting all my thoughts as you were starting the question, and then I started to go down the rabbit hole because as you guys, as Duck, you and Trample know, yesterday I was pretty fired up about this announcement. There's so many different ways that this just pisses me off. The least of which, and I think really the most relevant for the audience today, and most of Reddit, quite frankly, they don't really care about the esports scene that much. There's a few like fans out there that follow a couple teams loosely, but for the most part, the esports conversation gets taken down so much in most of the Reddit community because most of them are there for their own experience. They're not for someone else's experience. So when it comes down to it, what does that decision that Supercell or the Clash of Clans esports moderators, what they did yesterday, what does the average fan get upset about with that? Well, here's the deal. It's been one of the worst kept secrets for years that these, I use air quotes here, these quote unquote professional players, some of the really well known esports players on teams that maybe you've heard of over the years, like the old Queen Walker's team, which is now called Navi, the Tribe Gaming, which has been around forever, old Repotted Gaming, which finished second last year, is now Synchronic this year. All of these teams and all of these players, by and large, for the most part, they all break the game's terms of service in one way, shape, or another. Either that's from buying accounts, which a lot of times isn't the main account that they use for the competitions, but they all have these alternate accounts, these extra Town Hall 16s and 15s and stuff that they use for practicing and other events and stuff, things that aren't going to be scanned or checked. So they have plenty of bot accounts. They pilot accounts, meaning someone else pays them to log into their account and do their Legends hits to push their name to the top of the Legends leaderboards for them. They get paid to do that, which is, again, account sharing against TOS. They do win trading in CWL, where they join clans where the leaders send messages to rival clans offering them money to let them win so that their team can be at the top of the leaderboard at the end of the month. Like, it's so overtly cheating in every step of the game. And all of these guys who are really good at attacking just openly and blatantly have broken the rules for years. And the problem is there are also some of those same faces that get put on these clickbait videos. They get so many views on YouTube that, and listen, this is part of where the content creator program that focuses on esports, that's where they get their dollars from. It's from posterizing a crazy attack from some of these guys who are really skilled, they're really talented, but they're so talented they don't give a single flying F about the rules, and they haven't for years. And Supercell has just kind of turned a blind eye to it for years. And even though there's been too many reports, they have been so incredibly selective on who they enforce rules on, who they ban, what they do. Some of what's happened recently, because there's been so much information out, it forced them into a corner where they had to actually dig into it and see, all right, just how bad is it? Like, All right. I don't know. Maybe this is some of the new people on the team that were like, hey, I didn't realize there was this many, you know, times that our terms of service was getting broken by some of the best players in the game. Let's see how often it happens. So the announcement yesterday was basically we did that. We scanned all of the teams that are going to be competing in the next Worlds qualifier and some of the teams that have already qualified. And if we banned everyone who deserves a ban, like we have been doing previously, there won't be enough teams left to have a Worlds event. And it's, to me, it's lunacy. So we're just gonna allow them to break it. I mean, granted, they're gonna lose some of their alts, but those are bot accounts anyways. But there's no punishment for the actual people who are buying the accounts, who are cheating in Legends and in CWL, who are piloting accounts. There's no real punishment for them because the account that they compete in, earn their money with in these competitions and for potential spot in the Worlds, they still get to do that. And where the average fan should get really upset about this is if if my little brother downloads Clash, right? And for whatever reason, he's not very good at it and I'm better at it and I want to help him out. And I put his account on my phone, right? To help him out with something. If we happen to log in at the same time from different zip codes or different IP addresses at the same time, all of a sudden our account looks like it's pinging from multiple places, like it's a shared account. Then if one of us contacts help and support later on for a completely separate question, they're going to notice that and they're going to say, oh, your account's going to get banned for account sharing, right? When all we've done is just, I'm trying to help my little brother out. That sort of stuff, time and time again, Reddit sees this all the time, gets banned in Clash of Clans. These guys out here knowingly breaking the rules are not only not going to get punished for it, but Supercell is extending the olive branch to help them. Hey, we want to help you guys make even more money so that you can go out and, I don't know, find more creative ways to break terms of service later on. It's a complete double standard from what they've said for the longest time about being about fair play and about competitive integrity. This has absolutely none of this. This is, people out there who go crazy about Supercell is a money grab or, they're all about their financials. This is 100% completely a financial decision on their part. They are looking at who are the players and teams, the no-name players and teams who actually play and compete the right way, adhering to the terms of service, and are they going to generate enough views and enough attention for our annual major world event if we eliminate all of these long-standing professional players? And they realized, no, it's not going to be the same. It's not going to feel as good to us. And the crazy part to me, just the insane part to me is, I think if anything else, and we can get to the meta later, but this shows you just how disconnected, at very minimum, the people coordinating the Clash of Clans World Esports event are from where the game is actually at and the developers, because there's been so much scrutiny over what esports as a product is to watch because it's borderline unwatchable. The time hits are just they're 60 seconds of flash in the pan, they're gone. It's like one or two, maybe three different styles you'll see. It's very quick. It's not entertaining at all. And quite frankly, in this meta, outside of hard mode, any team out there can get it. So you're protecting the name. You want Navi, right? You want the name on the board, but they're going to do the exact same attack that any other Joe Schmo can do on screen for your Worlds event. It's not going to make the product any better. All you're going to get is the names that you already wanted up there. And the conspiracy theorist in me, I don't know. And this goes into the whole, and we're going to get down the rabbit hole here. Why Eric was banned ultimately, why Adam Time to Clash was banned, why Erica was removed from the creator program, why only North American esports players are still banned under the old rule, even though they've reinstated everyone else from South America and from Europe and from Asia who's been banned this year. All of them have been restored to the previous state. But how quickly we forget VAE Esports, who was on path to getting either gold or silver ticket during one of the first qualifiers, got banned in the middle of it when they were in the final 6 teams, and it's a completely North American team. Those guys just get forgotten about. So anyway, I digress. The whole
So let me say this. I call it a hot take. I don't actually care. they ban everybody, they don't ban everybody. I've never been about esports in the game, and I'm sure that there's at least one other human out there who plays Clash who has a similar feeling. But when I first saw, oh, they're gonna all get banned, I thought, hey, that's cool. Maybe my clan will have a shot to wind up competing, or there are other clans that are out there. And then I saw the note saying, oh, we're unbanning everybody, and I thought, I don't actually care. And some people are legitimately they're incensed and they're outraged. They're like, this is ridiculous. We follow the rules and blah blah blah. And at the end of the day, I guess what I really think about is not that Supercell shouldn't have rules, shouldn't have terms of service, shouldn't have standards, but what we're basically saying is there's a group of people out there, probably 5 humans, and a lot of times they're on these video chats, so you can see it's these 5 distinct humans that wind up legitimately demonstrating that they are indeed the most talented and skilled attackers globally, right? And what we wind up saying is, well, they bought an account to get here, so they're not actually one of the people. Like, to me, this feels a little bit different. This isn't like Tour de France where, Lance Armstrong is doping and they retroactively take away his wins. Or in baseball, I saw a post on Reddit. Somebody was like, oh, it's like when, people were using steroids and these other players were competing. It's a little bit different because they weren't the things that they were doing to break the terms of service weren't giving them an edge. It's not like they were exploiting bugs that nobody else knew and that's how they were doing it. It's literally I bought an account because I wanted to be able to showcase my skills. So from that perspective, honestly, I'm not mad about it at all. I don't care. I feel like it was the correct, I'm using air quotes here, the correct decision. But at the end of the day, I don't actually care if they have tier 4 and tier 5 teams that are playing and they're all on an equal footing and we're not just going to see one team completely destroy everybody else. I don't actually care. I think it's entertaining and it's exciting and it's something for people to watch. People enjoy watching pro games, whether it's in the US, you're watching pro football versus college football. If you're an English soccer fan watching Premier League versus Championship League, you're watching people that are ideally competing at a similar level with each other. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't actually think I care either way. Duck, what about you? I mean, I know Big B, you're very excited about the esports scene and you definitely have a lot of feelings and you're very passionate about it. I'm probably on the other end of the spectrum from you because esports has never really been what had me interested in Clash, and none of my content creation focuses on esports.
So, for me, like this bothers me for different reasons. Not because I'm huge on esports, but I do, do some competitive wars and tournaments, and that was my first thought when they started banning everybody. I was like, man, I wonder if they'll ban enough people that like a casual average team from like a community type clan could win Clash Worlds. Because to me, like Clash esports is not real esports. Like in the traditional sense, like how you pick up the game and play and compete is not the same. What you're watching is not really fun. I mean, there's not a whole lot of interaction between the other person that you're going against directly. So to me, it's just never seemed like a game that is ever going to be a traditional esports game. It's been a game that has revolved around what the community comes up with it. That was something I think Darian mentioned when they were talking about esports in the past. The community kind of made Clash of Clans competitive in its own way, and Supercell just kind of supported that, right? So I think it was maybe something that they've never fully wanted to invest in because the return's not there. And so therefore, like the amount of thought, care, and effort that goes into it isn't really there. And so I can kind of understand why they're more reactionary with how they handle this stuff than proactive. But for me, this isn't just a pro player buying a mini account so that he can play on the side. Like those guys have that many accounts so that they can go rent them out to teams for CWL, and so that they can, be in all these different tournaments, and it's a business as much of anything. But those bot accounts came from somewhere. Those came from someone who probably lost their account through whatever means it came to be, and then they were resold to someone else. So for me, when you said all these esports teams can play, even though they bought and traded and shared accounts, my question is what about the players that started out with those accounts? Like how many of those players are on Reddit saying, hey, my account got lost and I can't get it back and it's lost forever? Like that could be P. Castro's pilot account that he's making $50 off of playing CWL, So for me, like, yeah, they're not getting an advantage in the war that they're playing with that bot account, but there is advantages that they're getting. They are skipping past the time that a lot of players put in to get to that end game level, and they're not. I mean, there's just to sit here and say like there's so many cheaters that we're going to do nothing. Like, why, as a fan, in any sense, would I want to watch that? You know, to me, it's just wrong, and it's ultimately Supercell's fault for letting it get this far and kind of slow playing it. But I also don't believe that they didn't know that this was going on. Or if you want to look at it the other way, in their statement that they released, they talk about, you know, constantly checking and you know, doing these ban waves and stuff. But like, how did it get to this point if you're constantly doing that? And how are
But
you
I think
only just now finding out about all of this stuff if you're constantly checking?
So I think that's part of it is, the types of checks that they're probably running. And I think about this from, where I wind up working in the casino industry. There are a lot of things that we wind up checking to make sure that players are not abusing any of the offers that we give, whether it's in the form of free slot play or points, or these offers that go out there are things that people are always going to try to cheat and scam us and abuse. And I know that we're always on the lookout for various opportunities that a guest might have to take advantage of our systems. And even though we think we're super smart and we've figured out everything and we've plugged all the holes, new things do wind up popping up from time to time. And maybe this isn't necessarily a new thing, but the amount of work that goes into discovering these types of things is actually sometimes quite complicated. And depending on how much other development because, they're trying to, they're not bringing back global, but they're trying to continue developing the game and making some changes with the game. And there are other things on the to-do list, and just this doesn't feel like it's one of those super high priorities. And you make a good point about other people that maybe, lost an account, and is it fair, and what happens with these other folks. And I think if they weren't so far down the road already of having awarded some of their annual structure for how Worlds was going to be put together, they probably would have said, look, we're going to just go ahead and eliminate these three competitors, and we're going to open some stuff back up to get some more people in there. But they've got a roadmap that they've been working on since really last Worlds, and they had a timeline and everything was set, and basically like 60 to 70% of what they had built so far essentially fell to pieces. And their ability to properly and promptly reestablish whatever the new teams would be and the new competitors, I think if they had another 8 months still until Worlds, they would just scrap everything that has happened so far in terms of booting all the teams they need to and essentially start from a clean slate. But I feel like that wasn't really a good option for them, so they had to choose between the lesser of multiple evils. Big B, what are you thinking?
I mean, they could have absolutely started over from scratch. And I don't know. I feel like having players that the community could actually trust were there for the right reasons. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe, that increased the viewership a little bit because no one's really watching it right now anyway. So I don't really, like I said earlier, the meta is so unappealing to just the viewer. To me, and what I was getting at earlier is it feels like there's a concerted effort to protect. This is my biggest problem, and I get what Duck said. I think he made a really good point about what happens to the people who lost their accounts so that, one of these guys on Navi could have their 16th account, right? And what are we saying to the community when we're just, we're not punishing that? But more so than anything else, I think I could get closer to where you're at with it as far as, okay, this is a bad situation and maybe they're making the most of it. And we can argue about how, morally, ethically, we just don't agree with it in general, but understand trying to salvage the best of a bad situation. What I can't get over is the blatant favoritism and the selective way in which they've enforced this, even in trying to correct it. One of the things that came out with all this other drama were these screenshots proving that some of these other players who had been mixed up in some of the other drama had bought and sold and traded accounts. And some of them were like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And people were like, oh, they're not going to care anything about them doing this to an account 5 years ago. Well, they should. But the other side of that is those screenshots have been circling around and have been added to Supercell's Twitter account and everywhere else for so many years, and nothing was ever done about it. This line about, oh, we make a concerted effort to scan all the time. Well, then how come for 2, 3, 4 years, as long as these screenshots have been around, as long as you've known about them, you've not been able to see that this player was using bot accounts, but now all of a sudden you can? And now that there's no way to deny that he's done it because the screenshots gotten passed around so many times, now your response is, instead of holding that person accountable and the like, It's to give this broad stroke of forgiveness to a majority of the players that then still excludes, oh, by the way, just a certain number of people, a certain group who were somehow scanned and banned already earlier this year. And whatever process you couldn't locate the violations of terms of service on the guys when you were giving screenshots of them doing it. But somehow you found violations on these other guys who happen to be from the United States, who happen to be on the best team from the United States, who happen to be the best shot of an esports team qualifying for Worlds from the United States in the history of the Worlds competition. You happen to find a reason to ban those guys and then also neglect reinstating them with this new paintbrush of forgiveness. It seems to me so blatantly like favoritism towards a select group. And for whatever reason, we can go down the rabbit hole of why that is, but there's selective enforcement. It's not fair. If they want to walk back the rule, then you got to do it for everyone. The fact that they're not, this is just more of the same. This is more of the same. People will say, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. People say you're getting too far down the rabbit hole. I'm sorry. When I keep seeing evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence over the years and years and years, it keeps building this direction. At some point in time, a million points of circumstantial evidence is going to sway a jury. Okay. And that's where we're at with Supercell and how they handle bans and for breaks of terms of service when it comes to esports players. There's some players out there who are in teams that are just untouchable for whatever reason, and some that always get held accountable. And this is nothing more than just a continuation of what they've always done with the game. It's not fair. There's no equality in it whatsoever. And until they address that, I mean, the rule that they dished is just more the same BS that they've kicked in my opinion. And I hate to say this because in Town Hall 15 previous iterations, esports was something I enjoyed watching. I enjoyed getting behind the players, but I've made the mistake of trying to cheer for a North American team to qualify and get something. And Supercell has gone out of their way so many times just to make it so impossible for them. And it makes no sense to me because who are the majority of fans in the chat when one of these events is going on trying to support? It's people from North America, right? It's American viewers. They're the ones that are the most interactive. That's the reason why your Worlds cast on the main Clash of Clans page for both Twitch and YouTube is broadcasted in English, right? That's the reason. And so you go out of your way to restrict the teams that are most relatable to the fans. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. Whoever is running the esports competition at Clash of Clans, quite frankly, should be fired. Should have been fired 3 years ago.
I mean, I just want to throw some on there real quick. Honestly, I don't think any of the viewers that are watching those Worlds, matches are there for any other reason other than the free gems and rewards that Supercell has to push out to get people to watch that. That's all.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I will say that the whole entire thing is a little complex because they don't have like a dedicated staff toward trying to make sure that all of the terms of service are being followed. Somebody at some point a while ago wrote some terms of service and it's a document that's just been sitting around for a long time. Then we want to go and wind up being mad about it. And we want to be frustrated about, the disproportionate application of these rules when at a certain point, yes, something gets shoved in my face often enough. I see something often enough and it starts to bother me and I have to look at it. And I think that's where Supercell just finds themselves in a really, really tough situation. And I know that it has also had this difficulty for them. Not only did it come roaring to light through Eric and all the drama that has been drumming up there, and with Adam and all the frustration that's been drumming up there, I actually find it fascinating that there has been a bigger response from some of the content creators recently. Itsu ended up getting involved because Eric named him in his video, and then all of a sudden Itsu got a bunch of hate from Eric's fans who I think were responding in a way that was maybe less informed at the time. And I'm starting to see more people seem to be frustrated with Eric that, some of the doom and gloom he was forecasting didn't necessarily come to pass. And some people are expressing that they feel a little bit like, jerked around by that. I find some of the responses that I've seen from other people in the community to be pretty fascinating. And I'm going to specifically mention Lexnos, Galadon, and Kenny Joe because they all recently put out videos that are essentially touching on the world of content creation, whether it be from somebody like Lexnos who does focus on esports, or somebody like Galadon who's been around for a very long time with a variety of content, over to Kenny Joe who has actually been somebody who grew very rapidly over the course of the last 4.5 years, became very popular and is starting to experience a little bit of burnout and stress and frustration with the game. Sticking on the esports piece for a moment, Duck, you had mentioned to me not that long ago, which I ended up watching the video that Lexnos put out regarding his life and his direction and his experience with the game and the esports scene. Can you tell us just briefly, for those who don't know what that video was, what that video is about and what you think about Lexnos's take?
Well, he put out a video kind of like some of the other creators that have dabbled or waded into the recent controversies, if you will. And he had some points, he brought up a lot of the Eric stuff and the esports and also the direction of the game. And to me, it was just another one of those videos that has come out around now, and it just feels like there's a wave kind of going through Clash of Clans content creators of that passion kind of being lost. And that's kind of what it seemed like with Lexnos is the same passion wasn't there for the game. There was, various reasons, but he talked about, moving on. I think he's doing something with engineering. So he had talked about, pursuing that and putting Clash and content creation on the back burner. And I just thought, it sucks when we see, creators like Kenny Joe. When I first came back, I watched a lot of his videos because he was doing like his free to play guides and the rank up guides. And I was like, man, this is like the perfect stuff that I need to get from Town Hall 11 to max. And then to see him kind of peter off and hear him talk in his video about just not quite having the passion and not wanting to make the content that is popular, but wanting to make the content, that he finds enjoyable. It just really kind of seemed like he was saying how he felt about the situation. That might be in a lot of ways like how Eric and Lexnos and some of these creators that are not seeming to have a lot of fun are kind of at that same point where the passion isn't there anymore. And I think they are pointing to other symptoms and other things that, hey, I don't like this or this is a problem. But in reality, I think it just comes down to they've been content creators for a long time and that passion kind of runs out. And how do you know when to leave before, the magic's gone, if you will?
So with Kenny Joe, that video I thought was really brave, and I was messaging with him on Slack, and I just said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I watched your video. I thought it was really cool that you had put that out." And I actually thought he's somebody that I've talked to a lot over the last year and a half or so. I actually send him. He's been, he's a bigger content creator than I am because he does this full time. So I wind up sending him solutions for the challenge videos a lot that he just winds up, sometimes tweaking a little bit, but for the most part, just winds up using whatever solutions I end up sending to him. And so we chat about stuff a lot. And he had even been expressing to me, I'm going to say probably a year and a half ago, that he feels that, that magic that people think of, like, oh, you get to do content creation for a living. What a cool job. And that's the thing, right? We think about it like, oh, it's so cool to get to do that for a living. But at a certain point, when it becomes that responsibility, that thing you have to do, that job that you're doing, it starts to feel less exciting, in the same way that a lot of people over the course of their careers wind up feeling like, oh, yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. It's not quite as exciting as it was in the past. And he was feeling very burned out by all of his YouTube content. And so he switched to a short format. And he and I talked about this probably, a year, maybe a little over a year ago, that he was down to putting out like really one big YouTube video a week plus updates and challenge videos, but that the majority of his stuff he was focusing on the short content just because it's a lot to keep up with. And, Lex knows I'm super happy for him to be going back to school and to be focusing on his family. And he was very honest about the revenue side of things, because I think a lot of people think that most of these creators are in these very lucrative careers, but it's not necessarily as lucrative as people might wind up expecting. For the biggest and and most popular creators, yes, it can be a very, very good living, but you don't have to go very far down the rungs of that ladder of content creation until, yes, it's still a good living and it's a good job and it beats a lot of other stuff they could be doing. But it's not like these are jobs where people are making millions of dollars a year, which is, I think, this image that a lot of people in the community have. So I do think it was really brave of him to come out and be so honest about it and talk about really the kind of bullying that, we kind of like people have glossed over this idea of like, well, yeah, I mean, Eric wasn't really bullying. That's not bullying. You don't know what bullying is. Kenny Joe was talking about getting bullied by, the community essentially. And, he's not even that big of a guy. And he's talking about people commenting and making rude comments about his weight and fat shaming him and these, all the stuff that he winds up talking about in that video that was very personal and very heartfelt. And I was very impressed and I thought it was very brave. And it's true, it definitely highlighted what is a very beloved content creator for a lot of people who even him, he's got a lot of this toxicity within the world that he needs to deal with and he has to deal with. And meanwhile, we've got some other creators that are essentially trying to capitalize on that right now and stir the pot further. And it is something that we can see frustrating some of the other creators, like Galadon put out video, which I don't have time to watch a lot of other people's content on YouTube. I watch some of Itsu's stuff periodically. He's somebody that I've become very friendly with in the creator program. I think he makes good quality content, and I was frustrated at the community's reaction to his take on some of the stuff because he wasn't really involved and started getting attacked, and he was like trying to defend himself, and yeah, it just sort of went off the rails from there. But Galadon, he waded in, and while I was watching this, I kept thinking about an episode of The Clasuals from maybe like a year ago where Big B went off like incredibly cool epic rant, like scorching all these people in the game and the podcast community. And the whole time I just was watching Galadon's video, he was going on his rant. I thought, man, this is something that, this is like, some Big B quality content right here. Did you wind up seeing that Galadon video, Big B?
It did. Even though in some of those same episodes, I swore that like I just don't watch his videos. And quite frankly, listen to how ironic this is. I got turned off some of his videos because I felt like he was just too negative for a long time. How ironic is that now? But no, listen. One of the things that he brought up, and I know this is when you sort through like the actual script of what Eric's grievances were, what his complaints were, even Adam and Time to Clash, the reality is there's this misconception that some of this stirs from Supercell trying to silence their critics. And by and large, I don't even agree with that stance. And I don't really think that's the point that Eric and Adam and some others have been trying to really make. Because quite frankly, they don't. And if you don't watch Galadon's videos, you can go back for years and years and years and just see how many times he has gone, even when the general state of the game felt good, where he's on all the time talking about, is this the end of Clash of Clans? Have they ruined the game? Am I going to have to quit this game? And he has been hypercritical for a long time. Like I said, it's one of the reasons I stopped watching him as much. But his point was that no, Supercell doesn't silence people for being critical of the game. And I think it's very important to note that he didn't necessarily say that they wouldn't do it for other reasons, but specifically for being critical of the game, that's not something that they do. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of evidence to support that. So in a sense, I'm glad that he said that. I'm glad he pointed out, because at the bottom of all of this, like I said, with the esports, but also with what's happened to Eric, what happened to Erica, what happened to Adam in Time to Clash. There's some of it that we'll never know, but there's some of it that boils down to just unequal treatment. There's favoritism being played. There are certain people, creators, who get certain things that others do not for reasons that are not understandable to the general public. And because they're never explained, there's always this questions, well, why is this happening? Those are things that I think we need to ask more questions about. Those are things I think we need to get more understanding about. Those are things that I think will help us get to better conclusions that will reconcile some of the drama that's going on in the creator community and in the esports community. But one of those doesn't necessarily need to be oh, you can't speak out against Supercell, otherwise they're going to take steps to try to silence you. They don't do that. And I don't think there's hardly any evidence out there of them trying to do that, at least not in recent history. Now, our buddy Congressman Coolrick did a one-off episode a couple months ago with Jake from One Hive, where he definitely felt like that was what happened to him when he was talking about it against modding and things like that, and very vocal. And it felt like they just kind of separated themselves from him just a little bit. And I don't know how much of that, again, wasn't in the room, didn't see all those conversations, don't know how that went. He definitely felt like that's what happened to him. But again, how much of that was just him honestly wanting to disconnect from them not addressing issues in the game? I think that's the bigger issue. Is not that they don't, it's not that they're trying to silence criticism. It's that when the criticism gets brought up, they're either slow to act or they don't act on it at all sometimes. And then sometimes they act very swiftly, and there's no rhyme or reason to when they will choose to do one and not the other. I think that's the problem that they've got with their creative community and with what the consumer sees. That's really what they've got to address and got to fix.
Think about you're talking about a lot of stuff, whether it's from an esports perspective, it's a content creation perspective, it's Supercell's perspective. The intersection of all of this stuff, regardless of the type of content creator you are, is really the game itself. And there are millions of players out there that don't care that I have a podcast. They don't care that Congressman Coolrick and the rest of the Reddit Talks Clash team has a podcast. They don't care that you used to have a podcast. They don't care that people post stuff on YouTube or on Twitter or on TikTok or on any platforms at all. They just want to enjoy the game. And while the drama that a lot of this stuff has kicked up recently has certainly been, that notion of, bad publicity is better than no publicity, but at the core of it is the game itself. And there are a lot of bits of frustration that we've been hearing, whether it's from the esports community or even among the casual players. I've heard some casual players literally complaining that the game is too easy, and then other casual players that are saying, like, I've enjoyed the game more recently than I have in a very long time. While, yes, Supercell needs to spend time making sure people are following rules and not cheating and not bullying and not harassing, they also need to make sure that the game is able to support itself and that the game is going to be something that keeps people excited and focused for years to come. So I want to shift a little bit away from the content creators themselves and focus more on the game, that, all these people that are willing to sit here and listen to us ramble on and talk about the game, and the people that are out there posting on Reddit and posting on Discord and watching videos on YouTube, there is a divide. It might be smaller populations in different sides of this, but like the game itself and the direction that we think that the developers need to go. I'm gonna kick it over to Duck for a minute. We think about the game and its state and where it's at right now. What are you thinking about? Like, does it need to be easier? Does it need to be harder? Like, where do the developers need to go with the game?
I mean, me personally, I think the game's in a great spot right now. And I think that unfortunately we get fixated on like what happens at the top, and that sometimes dictates our feelings at the bottom. But I think with the hero equipment, with the balancing, like you can pick almost any attack style that you want, any army that you want, and you can make it work with pretty decent success on just about any base if you practice it. And that to me is like really exciting, because a lot of the town halls that I came through, like there was very specific, armies for each town hall that were effective and that worked, and there was a lot of stuff that didn't work. And so I think they've done a really good job of taking their whole library of characters and spells and heroes and equipment and made it so that you can find a way to have fun in any way that you want, almost with a little bit of effort. Now I will say, like, I feel like I'm maybe higher on the skill level than, say, someone more casual. And so as you get, to those lower skill levels, the game I feel like is still pretty hard. And I think if they really leaned into having the separation of the hard mode and the regular mode, I think you could really strike a good balance for everybody, because making the game harder is going to turn off a lot of people, the core game. And I don't think it needs to be a lot easier. I just think there needs to be a new wave of creators that are out there showing the community, like, hey, you can still play the game like this. Hey, these are the cool things you do, and not just, here's how to spam root riders for 3 stars because that's the easiest thing, you know. I think it's in a good spot. What do you think, Big B?
I agree on well, real quick before
Trample?
we pass it over to Big B, we just did a 3-person, it was like a 3v3 competition that we were in yesterday. So it was hard mode with a couple of extra rules, no more than 4 root riders and no spirit fox. And our team, which was me and Duck and one of our clanmates, C-Man, who is our strongest attacker, he does a lot more esports stuff than the rest of us. And we ended up getting 3 triples in hard mode with no spirit fox. And we are talented attackers. We are better than the average attacker. But I do feel like that was an example to me of, if you want to create that separation between like the really, really, really skilled players and the people that I think of like myself who are better than a casual player but not quite a pro, a little bit of tweaking with hard mode, and I feel like we're going to wind up in a situation where all parties can sort of be happy with where we get in the long term. Big B, what are you thinking about the game and the balance and the direction the developers need to go?
Well, I think it's important to note that how many times when discussing the meta, the progression of a game, are we dealing with a game that's been around for 12 plus years? Um, I think one of the things that's always going to be a challenge from here on until the game discontinues one day is you've got people who have 12 years, 11 years, 10 years of experience playing. And no matter what you do to the just general meta of the game, as those players continue and just listen, they might have played for 8 years and been awful, and then something just kind of fit. They saw the right video or something just clicked with them. All of a sudden, year 9, year 10, they start getting better at the game. When you've got that long to practice, that long through trial and error, the reality is people are bound to get better at attacking and playing, even if they're not reaching out for a guide, even if they're not going to YouTube to look at an instructional video, they're going to naturally get better. So the biggest challenge for the developers is, how do you keep it challenging but not too challenging? Because on the flip side of that, where you've got all these players who've been playing it for years and years and years, practicing, you've also got new players that you want to join the game, that you want to grow. You don't want the old players to be the only ones that ever exist here, but you've got to find a way to do both. I don't think when it comes down to it, what they've done with splitting off hard mode is a good step in the right direction for people who want that greater challenge. I think the easier meta where they've made it is more palatable to the average player, to the average Joe, to the person who just wants to zone out and play. Listen, those of you who've played console games, either you've done the story games or even sports games, like you can choose your difficulty level in a lot of those games. There's a reason why a lot of people play those games and enjoy them on easy mode, right? There's a lot of reasons why they will play against the CPU on easy mode and just zone out and just kill a bunch of bad guys in a game and enjoy it like crazy and play it for months and months, sometimes years. It's because not everyone wants the same challenge. So the game trying to create one mode to fit for everyone is going to be tough to do when you're a game that recycles with a new version or a new update every 2 or 3 years. When it's the same game for 12 years, it's going to be even more difficult. And quite frankly, trying to fix that for everyone, it's an exercise in futility. They've got to have separate modes in order to do that. They've got to have separate ways to break up the natural gameplay. And we can talk about that a little bit more in like quality of life suggestions later on. But that's something they've got to do. As far as where the meta is at right now, I think it's in a good place for the majority of the players. And, you cannot take all of your advice, all of your criticism on the game from everyone who's played it for 8, 9, 10, 12 years, or jumps in and plays it professionally, or is good enough to go on and make instructional videos about it on YouTube. If that's the only place you're getting your feedback from, then yeah, you're going to want it and expect it to be harder, more challenging. But that's not the majority of the players that are playing the game. It's got to be easier in order for it to just be more enjoyable to the average player.
Totally agree. And that's something you can see very clearly on Reddit, which is unfortunate to me because you'll see a newer player come on to Reddit and they'll post something like, "Hey, I'm really having trouble." And they're progressing well through the game. They've got good defenses, decently leveled troops, decently leveled heroes for their town hall, and they're experiencing a challenge with the game. And they'll go on Reddit asking for help. And then there's just a bunch of comments to the people saying, "The game is already too easy. What's wrong with you? You know, you just suck." And that kind of commentary drives me crazy. I would much rather see the community come together to help some of those folks out. The whole reason I ever started making YouTube content in the first place was just for tutorials. I liked taking ideas that I had and sharing with the community. And it's something that I really, really enjoy. And part of what I love about the way the game is right now, I've talked about this on my podcast. I hated the Town Hall 15 meta. I felt incompetent for 6 months. Then Super Hog Riders came out and I started feeling like I was doing well. And I like feeling competent at the things that I wind up doing. I'm not a glutton for punishment. My son has told me before, my son is 19. He's about to be a second year student at the University of Virginia. And, he tells me about video games. He's like, you should play Elden Ring. It'll make you like want to tear your hair out. I'm like, why? Want to do that. I don't want it to be, blindly easy. I want there to be skill and strategy involved, but at the same time, like I want to be able to feel like I'm meeting with success. And I love where the game is at right now. I've been a big fan golems, for example. I've been a big fan of golems forever. My favorite attack I'm making right now, granted I've been doing really well with my Hydra Growth army. I was 3 accounts perfect in Clan War League last month, 2 of 3 perfect this month, with one having a 95% 2-star in there. So 41 triples out of 42 attacks probably tells me the game is easier for people who are really good at it than it used to be. But at the same time, there is skill that's involved with what I'm doing. I've had other people try and pick up my army and they're doing well and they're getting triples, but they're not tripling at the same rate. And so there is still, even with an easier game, there's going to be a spread where, yes, it's a lower ceiling, so people are maybe hitting the peak, but that's where this hard mode edition, I think, has really allowed it to come in. And one of the biggest pieces of that hard mode has been the focus on trying to help sort of with the hero situation where the heroes are very powerful. And we saw this even with one of the Holland event challenges where one of the challenges was like, destroy this base using as few troops as possible. And somebody basically did it with just the heroes and the spells, which was super impressive, but also a testament to how powerful the heroes are. Hard mode is pulling down the power of the heroes that you're able to use. And it's because of the equipment, right? That we feel like everything is so much easier because the equipment has done a good job. But it created this weird funnel of, well, I want to upgrade my equipment, so I need to be in war, which means I need to have my heroes up, but I can't upgrade my heroes because I want them up for war, which led to what I think is probably the best quality of life change ever. And it's only for a 1 month time span right now. We got the full month because somebody forgot to carry a 1 or something when they were figuring out how many amounts of Dark Elixir we needed to wind up getting it back in the end of June in order to have this event running for July. But this hero event that they have going right now, I have seen a lot of people on Reddit, a lot of people in various Discord communities excited beyond anything that I've seen to be able to use their heroes nonstop throughout the month of July. What are you guys are I mean, I know, with max town halls, you don't necessarily have as much of an opportunity to enjoy the benefits come along because we've already spent a lot of, gems or magic items upgrading those heroes. But what do you guys think about this hero event that we've got going on right now? Are you thinking about it in as great of a way as I am as a potential future reinvigoration for the Clash community?
I think it's great. Like they got my $7 this month on my mini that I never play and never farm because heroes just take forever and I don't want to. I'm not like a good multi-counter player. I play one account and then once it's maxed, I'm now kind of like, oh, I got a little extra time. Is it Squad Buster or the mini? And I don't want to farm hero levels for the mini to not build a war with it. But this month, yeah, I bought the gold pass. All 4 heroes are down. Actually have it in the rated with Fuzzy Beaver Nuts. Shout out there. Now that clan has another participating member that's donating and doing wars and stuff. So I think it's great. I think it builds engagement, and honestly, everybody needs to buy the event passes and the $5 decorations because that's how we get more of these, in my opinion. What do you think, Big B?
Listen, every time this comes up now, I think so. It was about, I don't know, 3 years ago when Supercell was doing those in-game surveys, asking, what do you want, whatever. And that was when I was really hardcore. Like, man, I'm gonna buy every pack that comes in the shop. I'm gonna stockpile these magic items, just upgrade everything day one on these updates, just stay ahead of the game. And I literally put feedback in one of those surveys that said, hey, give me more deals because I'll buy every stinking one of them. If people don't want the deals, they don't have to buy them, but you need to give us more options for them. And like, here I am 3 years later, and I'm just like, don't say that Supercell never reads your feedback, because now there's so many options to spend money in the game. And listen, I get it. And Trample, I've heard what you've said too on you can overdo it and have wallet fatigue by just having too many options or people feeling like, quite frankly, they do too good a job of enticing you to buy stuff. Yeah, you can get people feeling like they're burnt out just on spending constantly. Um, but I don't think the options are a bad thing. And I, quite frankly, even though I don't buy them near as often anymore, I still appreciate that they're there. I honestly, I have a bad opinion on the hero upgrade thing because I'm one of these guys still sitting here with an account that's got like 20 books of heroes, and I'm like, well, what did I save all these for? If the upgrade times are just going to be gone, like I guess I'll just convert these to gems at some point and I don't know, finish off some of this hero equipment. But I've got one mini account that I actually still grind on uh, hero upgrades. So those are actually upgrading this month. So I guess from that standpoint, I like it. That one I'm also trying to, you know, spend less money on as well. I know it's not necessarily like free to play because I've spent some money on it. I mean, impulse. I can't like microtransactions. Sorry, guilty's charged. Um, but for the most part, I think it's a good thing for the community. I think if they're not going to listen, if we're not going to have the backlash of them making some other crazy decision because, oh, we realized how much revenue we lost in hero book money this month by doing it, I think if they can find a way to make sure that financially it's still cool for them to do stuff like this, I love the idea of having a month where you don't have to upgrade heroes in the traditional way. I think it's a good thing for the step right forward. And again, for all of you guys out there in the chat, like, Supercell doesn't listen. How long did we talk about wanting to upgrade heroes, to use heroes while upgrading them? And now we've got a chance to do it. Like, don't tell me that they're just not listening. There's a lot of things you can fault them for. Don't get me wrong. I'm not letting them off the hook here by any means, right? But this one, they've listened to, and clearly they're trying it.
A player with I'm not even going to use air quotes here, as a player with a problem because I play way too much and I have too many accounts. I have 30 accounts, some of which are maxed. Some are maxed at their own town halls, and then they kind of hang out there. I like to just, do this really quick, dumping armies in and grabbing some dark elixir and then closing the app. So I move through my farming pretty quickly. I never use sneaky goblins because it takes up too much time. And I like to be able to do mini wars. We had a side war in one of our clans called the Bad Guys the other day, where Congressman Coolrick and I, along with one other account from somebody else, we finished a war like 20 minutes in and got a perfect war. And then we were like, we're cool. I have fun doing that kind of stuff. And I like to be able to use most of my accounts, but as the heroes are down, then I can't have them in war. So this to me has been a massive, massive win. And I'm really hoping, this is pure speculation from a business perspective, I think part of the reason why, if I were Supercell, I wouldn't have had an event pass this month because I would want to see, if I owned Supercell, I'd want to see how much revenue I can generate in a month with no event pass and heroes being eligible to be used while they are upgrading. Because at the end of the day, you're still tying up a builder. And so the hero book still has value, and the hero book still has some importance to the pets for people who are at Town Hall 14 and up, because you can't use the pets while they're upgrading, which I think is perfectly fine. The hero concession, though, I think has been massive, and I've been like quietly plugging away for a long time with a couple of different people in Supercell. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did this? How about if we did heroes like this? All trying to find a way to make it to where people could use heroes while they're upgrading, because I think that it is going to be better for the game in the long term, even if you give up a little bit of revenue on the hero books and the gems for the hero books, we will pick up more revenue from side purchases just from having more people engaged in the game because so many people quit over the years as a result of not having access to their heroes. One of the solutions that people have been floating for a long time is, well, what if there were extra heroes? Because then maybe you could only take 4, so you've got one hero that's upgrading, and it's not a bad thing because you could still bring 4 of them in. It seems like, based on some of the feedback we've seen from Supercell and on their Ask Me Anything, that a 5th hero would potentially wind up coming along in the Town Hall 17 update. If we ended up seeing the heroes coming along, we've got this opportunity to use them a little bit. We get to use them for free right now, so to speak, while they're upgrading. Before we wind up talking about some speculation on, what we would potentially like to see or what we think might be available, you guys have any closing thoughts on the existing event?
I do. For those of you out there who are more contrarian on this, I don't want you to think that I'm not listening to this. So I do want to point out, I think it's just a little ironic that after they introduced hero equipment and really reduced the value that you got from upgrading your hero, then they start allowing you this pass where you can upgrade them and still use them at the same time. It's almost like the time that we get it, it's not quite as useful as it would have been if they'd done it before hero equipment, but I'm still glad that we got it. And again, I hope we continue it. But I'm ready to talk about what I want in a new hero. So, Duck, you got anything else for the event this month?
No, I think it was great. I mean, I think it'd be cool if, maybe future events, maybe they did something like this with hero equipment, maybe not for a full month, but maybe like a, 1, 2 week event. You get to the end of the track and you get to use all of your hero equipment as if it's max, something like that would be cool. But yeah, I think this was a really good idea on their part.
That's a neat idea about the equipment. So if we say, it's an interesting notion, right? Because it used to be that the heroes were very limited in scope because they had their ability. The Barbarian King, he's a tank. He's got the Rage Gem and the Barbarians, and the Queen is a ranged attacker, and she can disappear and deal a ton of damage. And the Grand Warden is the protector, and the Royal Champion hunts the defenses. And with the advent of some of the pets and with the advent of some of the equipment, we have seen those paradigms start to shift. So it almost makes me wonder, like, what does it even mean to bring a new hero when a piece of equipment could simply turn a hero into a completely different structure now? Let's ignore that for just a moment, though, and just think, like, in general terms, if we had a new hero coming for Town Hall 17, like, what role, well, Duck, we'll let you take this one first. Like, what's your idea of a 5th hero?
To me, I don't think they should have a 5th hero, honestly, like, because to what you said, you could change a lot with just equipment, keep it kind of streamlined, keep the focus on that. But if you are going to do a 5th hero, I think the full purpose of it is to alleviate that not having heroes down. So maybe, an event comes, a couple times a year where you to use your heroes while they're upgrading. Well, outside of that time, you still have to upgrade those heroes, and that's going to be painful. But if they find some way to integrate in a 5th hero and you still only get to take 4 into battle, you're essentially kind of semi-band-aiding that problem. And if you're going to do something like that with a 5th hero, I think it needs to be something that can be really versatile. And I think if you look at the Druid, you have something that does one thing and then transforms into something completely different. So I think if your 5th hero maybe is able to fill a portion of what each hero does already in some unique way, or maybe some way that you're able to change before you go into battle. So maybe you can make it kind of tankier for one battle and have your king upgrading for a week and you still have those 4 heroes. I think having something like that would be a cool idea, but overall I would just stick to equipment and find better ways to redo the heroes, honestly.
Okay. Big B, we got a new hero coming for Town Hall 17, and you get to design it, or you get to, it'll be your brainchild. What would you be bringing to the table?
Well, listen, of the things that I think I've had a good idea in the game on before, there's definitely a cap on my creativity, and creating a whole new hero from scratch. Geez, it's not going to be a great idea because my gut tells me what I want is really just like a second king. And listen, I worry that what is really the creative value? What else is there that you can do in a hero ability that hasn't already been done or isn't already somewhat captured in one of the 4 existing heroes? Um, and not to mention, with the different attributes that now come with with the hero equipment, how much of that truly is something that can be different added to an attack. But in my head, and I think about the types of attacks that I like to do and the ones that are the most rewarding to me in playing the game, it's ones that kind of just ground and pound, bully the opponent to some extent. So I wouldn't hate that a 5th hero was just like a second tanky type hero. I wouldn't even care if his DPS was that great, because Lord knows the king, outside of his ability all the time, isn't that great of DPS, even when you have him maxed. It's more to get out there and soak up damage. I feel like there's more creative things that I could do with the tag style that I would like by having a second big tanky troop on the board. And again, if we're thinking, and again, making an assumption here, that a 5th hero would still mean you could only carry 4 into battle, substituting one of the other heroes, probably the RC, for a second tank for some of the attack styles that I like to do. Selfishly, I'm hoping that a 5th hero is just another big, massive tank. Similar to kind of how the king is now. I know that's not super creative, but I mean, you didn't ask me what's the best thing for the community. You asked me what I wanted. And I want a second tank to get in there and soak up some damage while the rest of my troops come in behind and blast things apart.
Like the idea of a tank. If I were to wind up going with a hero of some kind, my two ideas would basically be fairly similar. One would be a flying unit that has a role as a tank that has relatively minimal damage per second, but it would not be like the Warden where you could do an air mode or a ground mode. It would be a permanently fixed flying unit. So it would be an air attack support, and if you decide, I'm only gonna maybe at some point, if unfortunately we go back to not being able to use heroes while they're upgrading, and you're upgrading your queen, and so you gotta flex in this new flying hero, but you're a primarily ground attacker, it might not be optimal, but again, still better than not being able to have 4 heroes at the helm. I think that would be kind of a cool option, but almost like a dragon with lower damage per second but higher hit points. If I got to pick, though, my number one pick would be something similar to what you were describing as a hero that is more of a tank. Because the king, he has decent damage, and especially now you pair him up with the gauntlet, which, when we talk about our Reddit posts that we've liked, I saw this a lovely post showcasing the power of the gauntlet. I'm not a hater of the gauntlet, I'm just a lover of the vamp stash. But I would like to see something that is a hero that would take something like the scatter shot, the eagle artillery, the town hall, the mortar, the wizard tower, the multi-archer tower, the ricochet cannon. There are a lot of defenses that deal damage to multiple units at the same time. I think a true protector would be a hero that was able to absorb the splash damage into themselves and basically keep the other troops around them safe. It would have to be balanced very carefully because you could completely break it by, dumping them into the core and making it to where none of the other troops wind up being able to take damage. But a troop that essentially will attract the attention of the splash defenses and prevent it from dealing damage to some of the other units. I think that would be kind of a very, very low damage per second. Like you think about with golems, right? It's not something that's going to be able to get in there and really do anything from an attacking perspective, but has a very protective role. I think that would be a fun opportunity for a hero. If they were to give us one quality of life change, my one quality of life change I would take hands down is being able to permanently use heroes while they're upgrading. I I have tried to buy stuff on all of my accounts this month to just say, look, RC revenue will still wind up coming even if this is not an option. So that would be my one by far, hands down. Duck, if you could have a quality of life wish list item that they would wind up giving you as selfishly as you'd want to make it, what would yours be?
Something related to hero equipment and a way to test it, just because I feel like that would benefit the community a lot. And if they're going to continue releasing equipment, and eventually you're going to have players that are trying to decide which of these epics do I want to spend my lunch money on, like I think you should have a way to test them first. And even if it's something where you get to FC your own village and you don't really get to change much, you just get to use the different hero equipment, something for that would be my vote.
I think that would be amazing. I tried pitching at one point through the creator Slack the goblin maps. saying default, anytime you attack the goblin map, the equipment is set to the max for your town hall. That way you could treat it like a testing ground. You won't be able to really practice against legitimate bases, but it would give you an idea and an understanding of how some of that equipment works and what it might feel like attacking some of those different layouts. And I was told, oh, we've got something that, we're going to keep testing and tinkering. We've been here in the community and we know that this is important, so we're going to keep working on something. But I guess what I was told very nicely was that's not what we're going to do to try and work on this. We want to do something, but I'm guessing it would just take a lot of development that would not be in the direction of what I'm hoping that means is that there's something else that they're working on. They haven't said anything officially. I don't have any inside knowledge on it, but I do hope that they do recognize, like Big B said, they are listening. They know what we want. They know what's important to the community. I would be super excited to see something come. How about you, Big B? What would be your quality of life edition?
You mean besides bringing global chat back, like just another kind of or I don't know,
We have
fixing
dragons.
fixing the recruiting mechanism in game that they've only been working on for 3 years. Now, my long time want for the game is a more customizable, friendly war mechanism in the game. Even something that you could create into an in-game, almost bracket style tournament in game. Some mechanism where you could create the parameters for a friendly war with another clan or another group of clans, or even an in-game feature where you could just go post and say, hey, I'm doing a friendly tournament today. There are, we've got it set up for 8 clans. Anyone who wants to sign up and join will start as soon as the clans are joined. You can have parameters like only 5 accounts for Town Hall 15, something like that. So that if you wanted to have like an event, like I know a lot of these community events, they do like handwritten brackets, or they'll do like, all this extra stuff outside of the game in Discord or other websites that create a bracket. If you could do something like that in the game so that when a community tournament organization wanted to do some type of event, some one-day event, or even some multi-day event, that they could host the bracket and the parameters, restrictions on whether that's troops, hit times, everything from how long you have in preparation day to the actual war day, like all that stuff. If you could have that function inside the game, you would expand the amount of time that your homegrown type of events between clans, between families could actually occur in the game. You could change the experience for how to break up just the normal war cycle or the normal CWL cycle. You could actually engage more in a more widespread competition within the game. I think would be a lot more enjoyable. And a lot of those other tournaments out there that exist in the community that have to force the user to get outside of the game and go use Discord or some other mechanism in order to keep track of where they're at with the program. You can do that inside the game. And thus, I think you're going to invite more people to experience the game at a different level, at a more advanced level, at a more integrative level than you currently have. I know that's a long, it's a long process. The counter to that is always, oh, that's way too much stuff. They'll never be able to put all that in the game.
No. Listen, they could just do a friendly CWL. Like outside of the normal CWL week, you just have an option to pick to do like a friendly CWL where you can invite 8 other clans. You could adjust how long the days, the quote unquote war days are. And then you would have like something already in game, like a format. You could adjust it how you wanted. And then you could play 8 clans against each other and have a winner. And then you
That would
could,
be cool.
and it wouldn't even be like them rebuilding anything. They would just have to find a way during outside of that normal CWL week to give you an option to start a friendly CWL, and then you just adjust from there.
Like
I like that.
imagine if
That'd be cool.
if that were what they introduced. Like, let's say you got a big tournament, you have 128 teams sign up, and then you just broke everyone up into like groups of 8 and said, all right, the winner from this pod of 8 teams will advance to the next stage. The winner from this will advance to the next stage. And you just did friendly CWLs constantly to determine who was moving on and advancing, as opposed to just, the old school bracket style. Like, I think that'd be pretty entertaining.
Those are some really cool ideas. I do think that I what I like about the quality of life changes, I like things that bring value to people of the community who are interested in it and don't hurt anybody else. of the things, like we see people get riled up when you make a change to a defense if it gets nerfed or buffed, or a troop if it gets nerfed or buffed. It ultimately sort of like takes something from some people who are enjoying some aspect of the game while giving to other people who prefer something to be a little different. Just adding options and flexibility and versatility to the game, I think, is going to be one of the most important things for Supercell to continue to reinvent the game in a way that will keep people engaged and playing for years to come. And both of those ideas that you guys just suggested, I think would be really cool. I get a kick out of that. So I am going to wind up moving us along to a little bit of a throwback to, for those of you who have not been listening to Reddit Talks Clash for a very, very long time, some of the early episodes, they really leaned very heavily into a lot of the stuff that was available within the Reddit community. And it's something that I've always enjoyed because I do really enjoy the Reddit community. And for those of you that are listening on the actual live version that we have right now on Discord, I strongly encourage you, if you're not very active in the Reddit community, to get over there. I know you're going to have people that get frustrated because they don't read the rules, they don't understand what kind of a community the moderators are trying to cultivate there to make it an enjoyable place for people to hang out. But get over there, check it out, interact and engage with the community in a positive way. That's something I strongly encourage you, in a positive way. Go interact with the Reddit community. And one of the things I loved about the earlier episodes of the show, which, as the show has evolved over time, it's still an amazing show, and I love the perspectives because we've got wildly different players, ranging from Spencer, who's like he's like, I don't even play the game really, like, but he's got this, very, very strong understanding of the game and the meta and the environment, to Congressman Coolrick, who is involved all over Reddit, is very, very active in the community, plays a lot, very talented attacker. You've got Sam, who recently came to hang out with us because one of his clans imploded, and he was looking for a temporary home to hang out with us. Liam has been a really fun, newer addition to the show because the hosts have kind of shuffled over time. It's all rooted in the Reddit moderators. But one of the things I really love that they don't do as much anymore is the posts on Reddit actually are, it's a lot of fun even to just see what people are posting and reading the comments that people are posting. So we wanted to pay homage to that a little bit by sharing some of our favorite posts that we've seen recently on Reddit, and then separate from that, talk about some of our favorite memes that we've seen on Reddit that they do allow on humor weekends. So I'll go ahead and kick this one off with one of the, and we probably should have shared these ahead of time on the off chance that we have them in, we wind up liking some of the same stuff. There's a post that I saw from you_Philo_420, that the post, it was around 4 or 5 days ago. The post was entitled "Barb King is Inevitable," and I love it. It's perfect because it's the Clash Games Barbarian King scenery, like the big one with the boxing gloves. And I've seen some people say that they hate it, but it's like he's in the core. The town hall is surrounded by Inferno towers. It's a video. The video is maybe 16 seconds long. It's totally worth the watch. We've all seen this type of thing before, but it's a Barbarian King in the middle. They trigger the ability. It's a giant gauntlet rage vial combination. And he's just like an invisibility spell tower triggers, makes the town hall invisible, but he's punching stuff that's in front of the town hall. So it's already dealing damage to the town hall. He's banging away at other things while the invisibility spell tower runs its course, gets in on the town hall. He just smashes the town hall, decimates the core by himself. And I think it's just perfect because he's got these giant boxing gloves on and he's just like punching the town hall. Everything around it is being destroyed. And it was not shared as a humor or meme. It was just shared as a post. And it is so true because I've seen people use the Barbarian King to great effect using this hero equipment. And it's something that definitely made me smile. Big B, what's a post that you've seen on Reddit recently that you particularly enjoyed?
I mean, recently, aside from all of the drama posts that and I really just God, I just sit there and like get a cup of coffee and just like, oh, let me read the hate. No, honestly, I think the one that to me was the most informative, or I don't know, I just found the most interesting. User Royal Slush did a post about, I don't know, 3.5 weeks ago, and he used information from Clash Wiki and from our buddy Clash Ninja to look at the total amount of build times over the years. And he did a nice little visual to show what the time frame was just for building, just for upgrading everything in the game from a building standpoint, pre to Town Hall 12, and then the different stages from 2018, 2019 on up until future. And I think it was really, really insightful because it showed just how long, if you are free to play and you're not enhancing your experience with Gold Pass, doing anything to speed it up, how long have they actually mapped out your upgrade times? Interesting to see that, like in 2022, it got to a maximum point when they had released Town Hall 15. It was fresh, and the upgrade time to get from beginning to end was almost 4 years. And I could have sworn part of the reasons that I like that post, because I could have sworn at the time when I very well might have been complaining about it, or maybe even a little after. I think Congressman Cool Rick told me, like, oh no, they've always consistently adjusted the upgrade times to where it's only about 2 years or so to do that all the time. And when I look at this graphic, I'm like, Congressman Cool Rick, you really don't know what you're talking about. Because at one point in time, to upgrade everything, it was like 4 years to do. I also think it speaks a lot to how they've drawn back the upgrade time since then. But also, we're still, I mean, right now, we're at around 3 years of solid upgrade time if you're not using anything to speed up those upgrades. And I still think that's, we talked earlier about what is a brand new player, what is their experience to the game, how does it differ from the people who've been around? You're looking at, hey, you got 3 years until you're max level, and that's assuming we don't pile on upgrade time on top of that. They've got to do something to either reduce the time or, I don't know. I don't know, I'm kind of going off on a couple different angles here, but we talked about the account buying and sharing earlier and how that's caused so much drama in the esports scene, or just with fairness and fair play, all that sort of stuff. I've said this several times. They need to find some way to make a purchasable account possible. Maybe not from an existing player, because they don't want to encourage hacking. They don't want to encourage account stealing. But maybe a way to start off from like Town Hall 12 or Town Hall 13. Maybe something on this map where you're looking at 3 years of upgrade time. Maybe there's a way to buy your way to just the last year of upgrades, or just the last year and a half of upgrades. Something like that. I think that's something that they've got to look into. They're going to keep 3 years from beginning to end to finish this game if they're not going to just widespread reduce all of it. I also thought it was really, really interesting that still today, Town Hall 13 upgrade building still takes more time than Town Hall 14 and almost Town Hall 15, because there's so much stuff to do Town Hall 13. Crazy to me.
All right, Duck, what about you?
So my post that I found, I was really trying to find funny memes and stuff, and I'm really disappointed in what Reddit has to offer lately. There was not much funny stuff. Like, honestly, if you guys want to see some humor, you just need to go find Congressman Coolrick's page, and then just go read through his replies to any of this class drama stuff going on, and just read through some of the conversations that he's dealing with, and there's some chuckles there. But I did see a post where there was a guy talking about how to farm gems, and how many you can farm kind of free to play in a week. And the popular discussion right now is how to get epic equipment if you miss it. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go about getting gems free to play. And so I thought this was a good post to highlight it. I'm not saying that it's 100% perfect. I think some of these you can actually get a little higher, but it's a good place to start if you're wondering how to get some gems to purchase, your apprentice builder, or fireball, or whatever it might be.
I saw that post also, a very cool post. So one thing I will mention before we move on to memes, because there are really like the two sides of Reddit in my opinion. One is like the people that like to come out for the weekends, because that's when we concentrate all the humor and the memes, and it's a change that they made on the Reddit, on the subreddit for Clash a couple years ago. I think it was a good one because it gave a slightly more serious and community focused, game focused time during the week where people can come and ask for help and talk about attack strategies. And then the weekend can be a little bit more just like, chill and laid back and meme related. One of the things that I did, and I'm not trying to like, pump myself up or promote myself, I want to talk about the community response to a post that I made where I said, hey, I'm going to give away 2 of the Clan War League sceneries. because it was something that I was able to acquire through the creator program. So I put two of them up there and I just said, there's been a lot of negativity lately. And I don't love what I've been seeing so much. Let's talk about positive stuff. So just make a reply of something positive in the game about a clanmate, about an experience, about something. And I would encourage you, for those of you that are feeling a bit overwhelmed by some of the negativity that's been out there in the community, if you find that post, it's you/Trample Damage. It's one of the most recent posts that I've made. There were so many really great stories that reminded me of my entire journey along this road through Clash of Clans, from back when I started in 2014 with some of my clanmates, the people that we've had come into the game over time, the experiences I've had with friends and family out in the real world, the experiences that I've had with my clanmates and my co-leaders on Discord, and of course I have a slightly different journey because I have gone down a content creation route as well. But so many of the stories in there were super positive and amazing. And if you want a nice, very heavy dose of positivity with a couple people commenting stuff like, I want the Archer Queen's feet, or I hope I win this, even though I'm not posting something that's a real comment. That's something I would strongly encourage you guys to go and take a look at, the amount of positivity and the amount of community that there is out there. And it was I just love everything that people posted on there. So we'll wrap this up before getting to our shout outs with a couple of humor or meme posts that we've seen recently. I saw one. I just kept laughing, and it wasn't a video, and I think that's what just made it so much better. It's the grand it's the Grand Warden, and he's like off to the left side of the base, and he's trying to person's clearly going to go for a fireball because there's 4 invisibility spells covering a ton of defenses. The plan is clearly for the Grand Warden to hit the town hall, and the fireball's going behind him to a troll Tesla that popped up in the corner, and it just made me laugh so much. If you guys haven't seen it, it was user u/KHURANANIKHIL. It's Kuranical 21. It was posted about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Super funny. Hopefully, somebody winds up seeing it and can drop it in the comments. For those of you that are listening live, for those of you that are listening to this on the Reddit Talks Clash podcast on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or on any of the other amazing places where Congressman Coolrick winds up posting their Reddit Talks Clash podcast, it is u/KHURANANIKHIL 21. And I can't tell you what it's called because it's just that emoji face of the tears in the eyes. It made me laugh quite a bit. Duck, what do you got as a humor or meme post that you've seen on Reddit, on the subreddit?
Congressman Coolrick's comment history is my meme option right now.
Fair.
That is
Fair.
where I found the most humor. I love Rick.
All right, Big B, how about you?
I mean, I feel bad because I tried real hard to figure out where it originated from, and I just couldn't be tasked with finding it. But this is not a cop out, but for me, the best meme I've seen on Reddit for I don't know how long is the one with the Itsu face and the guard dog and Supercell. And I know it's like is it made in bad taste? Yeah, maybe, but it was, jeez, was it so spot on. And I'm sorry, I get it. Like Itsu kind of got wrapped into it, but then he also kind of asked for it by getting too far into the comments afterwards. And listen, I thought the guard dog image, what is it from? Oh gosh, what was that game?
It's
Grand
great.
Theft Auto. Yeah, yeah. So
I
I thought that was perfect. And I whoever's out there that created it, I'm sorry, I forgot who it was. Who was the first one to post it? I saw it passed around so many times, I just couldn't tell. But that to me is the all-time champ right now. And second place.
I mentioned that. I mentioned that on one, and I get along with Itsu really well. I message with him on a regular basis in the creator program, and I was talking to him a lot about this as the whole Eric drama stuff was unfolding, and he ended up getting pulled in. And I had asked him recently, because I saw a comment that he had posted, like he was working on another video to talk about some of this stuff, and I had sent him a message saying, "Hey, you're not like still planning that, are you? Because it feels like," he said, "No, I'm gonna stop. It feels like getting wrapped in the negativity." And I really like him. And when I saw when I saw that post, when I saw that with the picture of him on the dog's face, I cracked up laughing, and I felt bad because I actually do like him a lot. I get along with him really well. I look forward to an opportunity to meet him in person one day. He's a cool content creator. He's a very gifted clasher, obviously. And it's one of those things like if I had seen that, because of a take of mine, somebody managed to put like my logo on something in a similar way, it was it's like it was mean because I do like him and I get along with him really well, but I could not help but laugh when I saw that. And I did mention that on one of my podcast
But
episodes recently. I was like, man, when I saw this thing, I cracked up laughing. I felt terrible for laughing because it's like laughing at somebody that I really like. But it was it was definitely funny.
hey,
And
Trample.
I did feel bad though.
Rick did come in with the post, and it is u/Poke Knox. He also goes by Chief Poke Knox on the subreddit. Posted 14 days ago, but it's so good. And listen, I've said before, I've never been a big Itsu fan. Just personal taste, whatever. Like I said, I don't know him. I don't have anything personal against him. Just not my cup of tea. But I think the fact that he invited some of the smoke, and that was the community's response. Well done, Poke Knox. You hit the nail right on the head. That's as good as I could have hoped for.
Okay, so one more that I'll wind up sharing just because, and for those of you that are listening live or listening to this someplace else, if you don't interact with the Clash of Clans subreddit very often, maybe you're just a podcast listener. I've already mentioned that the Reddit Talks Clash guys are hosting Clash tours. So on Clash tours, you'll be able to find them on the most recent episode, and you'll be able to find C Note hosting Pineapples and Thorns, and you'll be able to find Cat. I've only ever done my podcast Inside Clash as just me talking for 45 or 50 minutes. I try and break it up with different segments to make it feel less like you're just hearing me monologue. But Kat had the daunting task of having to pick up Inside Clash, so you'll be able to find Kat hosting for the first time ever somebody that is not Trample Damage hosting the podcast Inside Clash. I'm really excited to wind up getting that out there. I believe we're planning on posting those tomorrow, in addition to getting the Reddit Talks Clash, which of course we're recording live right now. I've never had a chance to record live in front of an audience. I do appreciate all of those of you who are still hanging out here as we went way beyond the amount of time that the Reddit Talks Clash guys normally wind up doing this. So hopefully we'll wind up getting this turned around pretty quickly and posted back out there for everybody. But this has been a ton of fun. I want to share one last meme there. They titled it New Meta Psychological Warfare, and it was posted by u/tattooman20, and it was posted about 2 weeks ago, and it reminded me of how things used to look when the world flags used to be available in the game. Early on in the game, I had this idea that I would buy all the flags and put them scattered all throughout my base just to add some layer of confusion to an attacker. And I firmly believed that this was a viable strategy because I had people tell me, "Oh man, it's annoying seeing that. Like that would be distracting." So that was actually a strategy that I was employing. So this post that this person put of psychological warfare, like it almost looks like they just randomly assigned all of the items to the map, the wall pieces and the defenses and the traps and the heroes, and it's just this absolute mess to look at. And I just thought it was really funny because it is something that sometimes the way that the bases are laid out can certainly make it difficult for us to come up with an appropriate strategy. So shout out to Tattoo Man 20. Speaking of shout outs, we are going to try and let the rest of you get back to your lives here. I want to go ahead and wrap this up in traditional Reddit Talks Clash style by going with some shout outs. Big B, we'll let roll with the shout outs first.
Well, I first and foremost shout out to Trample and Duck for allowing me to come on and uh, knock off some rust on the old podcasting ways, and for being so much fun to interact with and leading up and kind of planning this episode. It's been a lot of fun. And to my buddy Rick, who months ago when I decided to stop podcasting and kind of take a break, just trying to resist the full burnout that the game can have for you. Rick's one of the guys who's done a really good job of keeping in contact with me, and every time I DM him with questions and stuff or something, he's always down to chat or to talk about the tea, what's going on. So I really appreciate him. And then I'd be remiss. I was gonna take all my accounts to one clan, just kind of play by myself for a while. That was my plan. And then my old clan mates from a clan called the Rusted Legends, um, a lot of them started coming back to the game, and they messaged me and were like, "Hey, you come back and play with us." And I was like, "I really don't want to do wars. I just don't want to be that involved." They're like, "It's fine. You just come back, exist, and do whatever you can." And they do constant wars, and when I want to get in, they do. But the fellas over there, some of the guys who have clashed with me forever, guys named Manoob and Grifolian, Lord, who's been the leader of the clan over there for forever, Kruznik, Visboy, like there's too many to name in that clan who are good guys who have always been good clan mates. And at a time where I wasn't sure that I really wanted a lot of interaction, they came and found me and reminded me like why being part of a community in Clash is so enjoyable as a game. You get all of the other nonsense out of the way. You just interact with other people, find common ground. And interestingly enough, all the guys that I play with, they're Indian. And I get along with them really well. And even though I don't speak Hindi, and they like they like doing that in chat all the time, sometimes I think to purposely troll me. That's okay. Every once in a while, I'll Google Translate it, figure out what they're saying. But it's the give and take, and I really enjoy it. And I probably wouldn't have been a part of this podcast today if I hadn't stayed a little more in touch. And I probably wouldn't have done that if those guys hadn't kept me in the game and engaged and enjoying it, even at a lesser extent than I used to. So I appreciate those guys out there and think the world of them.
I'm gonna shout out Rick first of all for his little brainchild idea. It was a good one. Thank you to all the other podcast hosts who agreed to do this so that I could get onto a podcast. I have been bugging Trample about this since before he started the podcast, so glad we could finally do it in Rick's house. Thanks to Big B for joining us. Shout out to Sino. Please come back. It's not the same without you. I've been using Mass Yeti since you left, and I'm ready to change it up, so please come back. And my last shout out is to all the old guys that are yelling at clouds that they hate the Vamp Stash. The Vamp Stash rules. You suck. That's all I got.
Oh.
Oh no. Okay, so this has been a ton of fun. I know we went way longer than we normally wind up doing for the Reddit Talks Clash guys. They normally keep their podcast to about an hour. So if this happens to be the first one that you found and you're still listening, you're going to be disappointed when you listen to the rest of their episodes and find that they are not pushing the 2 hour mark. My shout outs are really all focused on the Reddit moderators. First and foremost, Cool Rick, because he did come up with this idea. So I'm just jumping on the bandwagon with Big B and Duck, shouting him out. This idea of sharing the podcasts and mixing them up and hosting each other's shows and being able to give our own takes and our own interpretations on each other's podcasts, I think was an amazing idea. I was really excited about it as soon as he floated the idea out there, and I was really excited to have an opportunity to draw Reddit Talks Clash as the podcast that I ended up having a chance to be able to come on. So I want to say thank you to him and a shout out to all of the moderators, not just the guys that are on weekly basis or a periodic basis, because I know sometimes one of them jump in and out and wind up missing an episode. But a shout out to all the Reddit moderators. And the one thing I like to end most of my episodes with is a plea for you, for those of you that do choose to spend money on the game, to use a creator code of some kind, whether it's a podcaster, a YouTuber, a TikToker, a person who you just wind up knowing like Clash Ninja, who creates these tools for you. I did want to say, for those of you who don't know, Cart, who is one of the moderators on the subreddit and also a massive contributor and I think practically the owner of the Discord server that we're on right now, Cart does have a creator code, and I think in a way that a lot of us other content creators have opportunities to consistently show off that we do have a creator code that's available, whether that's like Clash Ninja, just making some posts online or on his tool on his website, making sure that that he's got a code. Cart does have a creator code, which is KART, and also Azer. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. AZER also has a creator code. These are people that work very much behind the scenes to help make sure that you do have a great place to come and share ideas and share memes and and share humor and bond with the community, whether it's on the Discord server or if it's on the Clash of Clans subreddit itself. So, if you're looking for a new creator code because you used to use Eric's and you want a new one, I'll never argue if somebody wants to wind up using mine, but there are a lot of great creators out there. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that among the Reddit team, there are creators with creator code available for you to use. So make sure contribute to the Clash of Clans subreddit, contribute on the Discord server, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to visit with us today. Thank you to Big B, thank you to Duck for joining us. Big thanks as well to C Note and to Kat for getting involved in this mix, in addition to the Reddit moderators. I really appreciate everybody. Make sure to keep clashing, make sure to keep listening to podcasts, and we will check you guys out whenever we get back to this. Boop, stop recording. Boop, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do now. Now I'm just going to
Yeah.
stand here and wait
Beep, bop,
for Rick
boop.
to come in and help turn the damn thing off.